Hi, it's Adam from Reality Manifestation, and within this video, I'm going to be going through the best strategy to reprogram your mind in 5 powerful steps. Just to give a pre-warning before I go into these 5 steps, this isn't going to be a quick 10-minute, you visualize this, or you write down how you want to feel, or you do some affirmations. This is going to be a real step-by-step process that creates real lasting results, and what I'm going to be going through within this video is an instruction through these 5 steps and instructions to go towards complementary videos and materials. They'll help you to get the most out of these steps so you can apply them and get real lasting results. I've spent many years watching through various tutorials online, reading many books, listening to many audio programs, trying affirmations, visualizations, writing things down. And it sounds great when someone says, learn how to change your life in 5-10 minutes or a short period of time. But what I'm going to go through, even though it's really shortened down a lot of what I could go through, it's still going to likely take you at least a couple of hours to work through these steps by watching the material that complements it. Unless you've already been watching all the previous videos that I've made on the channel so far. When I started following and applying aspects of these steps I'm about to go through with you, I started to finally understand why, when I was using techniques such as affirmations, visualizations, writing a gratitude journal, trying to think positive, why I kept going into states of either feeling down, depressed, sad, ungrateful, and none of it was really working for me. Working through the day, trying to think, why do I keep feeling this way, and why can't I get myself to feel better or different or motivated? And as I started to learn how to associate pain to change my current behavior or how I feel, interrupt my patterns, create a new identity, and I started to learn how to condition it, I started to actually feel inspired to want to work through my day. I started to finally understand why I wasn't able to change my wiring in my mind or how I feel, using the examples I mentioned previously. And then also the power of creating an empowering environment for people who support you and help either push or pull you towards your goals and ambitions, rather than being a barrier that gets in the way. So I've just gone through these 5 steps as I was describing this, which is step 1 is to associate pain to what you're not changing, the thoughts, habits, behavior. And step 2 is to interrupt the pattern. So it could be the pattern of disempowering emotions you may feel on a regular basis. Step number 3, designing a new identity. Any real long-lasting changes in our beliefs and our behavior is when it comes into a change in our identity. Step number 4 is to condition it, to make it more powerful so it becomes an automatic habit, subconscious program. And then number 5 is to create an environment that encourages it. So now I'm going to break these steps down and go into them in more detail. But like I've said at the start of the video, you'll want to watch the material that complements these steps unless you've already seen it or familiar with the concepts I'm about to go through, as these are going to be more of an overview of each step and how each one follows the other, as I've already done a step that covers each step except for step number 5 in detail. And just before I go through this, let me just ask you this. Is it worth spending a couple of hours to learn how to create a real lasting change within your life and how you think and feel, how you view yourself, and the actions and behaviors you'll take, and understanding why you may or may not do a certain action or behavior? And once you've gone through this 5-step process, you'll be able to create changes that can last for a lifetime. So you won't have to keep repetitively trying to change a certain aspect of your life that's been holding you back. Okay, so now actually going into these steps, starting with step number 1, is you want to associate pain to the aspect of yourself, how you're feeling, or the habit or behavior that you're wanting to change. The reason you want to start with associating pain first in the sequence of these steps are designed in this way for a reason is our mind's 2 prime motives is to either help us avoid pain or to gain pleasure. So until you start to associate pain to something you're wanting to move away from or to change, your subconscious mind may still pull you towards it, because everything we do, on some level, we're getting something from it, even if it's having a destructive impact on our lives. So until we associate pain to that habit, behavior, or even the thoughts or emotions we have on a regular basis, because our thoughts and emotions can actually meet our needs, even if it has a destructive impact, even if it makes us feel down or depressed, there is actually something we're getting from them on a certain level. So until you start to associate pain in your nervous system, it's not just something you think, this is frustrating or this is having a negative impact, but you feel it on a deep level and it's associated in your nervous system, your mind is likely to still keep pulling you towards that habit or behavior. So I'm going to leave a video in the description box below that goes through this step in more detail and how to practically apply this to associate pain to an area of your life that you're wanting to change. You'll know you've successfully applied this step as you'll start to feel pain, anger, something that's wanting to move you towards changing this aspect of your life. And once you start to associate pain to it, you then want to move on to step number 2, which is to interrupt the pattern. So what I mean by pattern is it's very similar to a habit. We're creatures of patterns, and to save us time of having to recalculate or rediscover what something means, to whether it will lead to pain or to pleasure, and the subconscious mind is always reliving the past, we'll keep repetitively replaying certain patterns unless we change and break these patterns on a regular basis. And this is why it can be so difficult to change our habits and behaviors, because our minds are designed and wired to keep replaying the same patterns. Any real lasting changes is a change in pattern. To give an analogy for why a lot of people struggle to change a new habit, a new thought or a belief, is think of a CD player, and any CDs that go into this player is a belief. And you've got an old belief that's already playing and you're trying to stick a new CD on top of it. You need to break the old pattern, break the old CD out of the player and replacing it with the new CD, the new belief, the new pattern. So again, I've already done a video on how to cover this step, which I'll leave down below, which I highly recommend you watch this if you're not familiar with how to break your pattern already, and you know you've completed this step and ready to move on to step number 3, when you're no longer on a habitual basis going into the pattern of wanting to, say for example, eat junk food, if that's an aspect that you're wanting to reprogram in your subconscious mind, or you're no longer on a habitual basis feeling a negative, disempowering emotional state anymore, such as if you've currently had a pattern of going into feeling sad or depressed. If you're no longer going into these patterns habitually, then you're ready to move on to step number 3. And just to be clear, this isn't to be confused with saying you'd never feel these emotions again, but you're no longer having the habit, the pattern of going into it habitually, even if nothing around you has happened that may cause you to go into that state, if that makes sense. Leave a comment down below if any of these steps aren't quite clear, but make sure you've watched the complimentary videos first, as I may have already likely explained the answer to your question. Now moving on to step number 3, which is designing a new identity. To paraphrase a quote by Tony Robbins that best summarizes this step and the power of it is, the strongest force in the human psyche is one's need for their words and their actions to stay consistent with their identity. So basically how they view themselves. Your identity is just a series of beliefs of who you believe you are or how you view yourself to be. To give a very brief example now, if someone believes they should stop smoking or that I'm going to stop smoking, they may stop for a while, but they may still get cravings or may relapse and start smoking again. But if someone identifies themselves as a non-smoker, the thought doesn't even come to them because it's not who they are. They're not a smoker. They're not a smoker who's quit, that they're a non-smoker. So again, I've done a video that covers this in more detail, which I'll leave down below. Again, I recommend you to follow this video before moving on. You'll know you've completed this step by just basically redesigning your identity and then moving on to step number 4, which is to condition it. So what I mean by condition it is basically programming the new change into your mind. So there's various techniques on how to do this, such as visualization, affirmations, and following on from the analogy earlier with the CD player, it's now that you've got the empty CD player because you've broken the previous old pattern and you've designed a new CD to put into it. The conditioning is now taking the CD you've just designed with the new identity and placing it into the CD player so it becomes your new pattern and the habitual programming your subconscious mind will keep playing out. So I'm going to leave 2 videos for this down below. One for how to get the most out of your visualizations for achieving your goals, which is a great way for conditioning, and also about your state, so basically how you're feeling moment to moment and how to change that, as this is a great tool for also conditioning new beliefs, habits and behaviors, and you'll know you're ready to move on from this step as you'll feel it on a deep emotional level. You'll habitually want to take the new actions or have new thoughts, feelings than you did previously before conditioning it. And then moving on to the 5th and final step is to create an empowering environment. So this is basically doing anything you can in your own ability and power to have circumstances and people around you that complement these changes you've just created. As it can be very easy, as say for example you're struggling with your confidence, if you have people who are close to you who are consistently putting you down, making you feel less than, or you're in a working environment, people putting you down, or if you're wanting to try and feel wealthy and you're in a messy house, you've got bills stacked all around you. I'm not just saying you'll be able to magically remove these challenges or problems you may be currently facing externally. However, taking actions to change and improve your environment much as you can makes it much easier to make it a lasting change and to reprogram your mind. So I'm going to do a video in the future that will cover this step in more detail. When I have, I'll leave a link to it down below. But for now, to give you some examples, if you have friends around you that are putting you down or disencouraging you from the changes you want to make, you may want to consider how much of a positive impact it's having on you overall, and if it's worth keeping them around. If you're wanting to lose weight, for example, having a lot of biscuits and junk food all around you makes it much harder to not give into cravings or to relapse into overeating again. Or if you was to leave your training gear, like your trainers, out in front of you first thing in the morning, all of these are changes in your environment that encourage you to take out the new behavior and conditioning the new identity that you've formed and make the changes you're creating much easier. I hope you found this video useful. If you have, if you could like the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe, as this lets us know what kind of videos you'd like us to make more of. Also share this with anyone who you know has been wanting to create a change in their life, but they've been struggling. And also comment down below which step you found most powerful, or if you have any questions to any of the steps that aren't quite clear. I hope you found this video useful, and I shall see you soon.